Welcome to the Hidden Bridge. Today I want to finish the foundational series I've been busy on. And yes, it will sort of be a reference material for all the other stuff that will be upcoming. It's really about just a 30-year journey of learning and integration that in hindsight gives a lot of information, but trust me, it wasn't fun. So to show you quick the first slide. It's just basically my role in the bridge and how I relate to it. So here with my first slide, I'll come back to it because it's sort of seminal in the whole story of the Hidden Bridge. I was 23 and I was busy with my master's degree in econometrics, and our scene starts with four friends meeting in a little flat in Silverton, Pretoria. One was a PhD student in theology. The other was a final year theology student. And the third one was a final year accountancy student, but a on fire evangelical Christian. And I, coming from a very conservative, traditional Christian background, serious about religion, but not on that level. And of course, they went to almost to blows. It's a pretty much big discussions, especially if you have a very liberal PhD student, but focused on the conservative side of things, a very conservative Christian from a Dutch reformist background, and then this evangelical. So the discussion went to meaning and purpose, God, the gifts of the Spirit, all these things that I knew absolutely nothing about. And as I was driving away, I remember that I will probably never forget it. As I was driving out of the premises, in my heart I asked this question: what is the truth? What is all of this about? And there was a voice, clear as day. I know the psychologists will have a lot to say, probably the physicists as well, maybe the philosophers. I don't care. For me, it was pretty much what I would call audible. Although I know now, no, it wasn't audible, it was in my head. But it was real nonetheless. It took many years for me to really grasp what happened. And that voice said, I will teach you. And me being young and naive, oh so stupid, said, yes, that's what I want. Oh man, if I can give that young man advice today. Run, Forrest, run. Because this is where a journey starts. Not planned for. And today I will look back and I will tell you the price has been paid. But man, the cost. So that night, let me show you this slide again. I had a very, very intense vision. There were two paintings on a wall. On the one side, there's our friend Moses with the 10 Commandments. You see the mountain exploding in the back, the volcano with the liver of Rava, and you'll see this multitude of people emaciated, suffering, hungry. And the other painting, first of all, is a Turkish garden with a fountain in the middle where four paths come together. I've tried to capture it as best I can here. But it's sort of a Byzantine look and feel, the painting. You know, the Byzantine mosaics? And there is this youth praying. or he's praying, or just he's got his hands raised to the sky. And the sun definitely forms the form of a cross, illuminating the thing. But the real message for me always have been peace and tranquility. Real peace. It would take many years for me to really get to grips with this. Because what I didn't know, that night the train left the station and it would never return. So let's talk about 15 years. A story of 15 years. In evangelical Christianity. That was what I knew. I knew Christianity. So I went to search for meaning and purpose in Christianity. And for 15 years, I was going through various cycles, but it was Christianity, and it was evangelical Christianity, and it taught me a lot, and it gave me a grounding that even until today I cannot shake. Because no matter what path I walk on, I always know there is something more than meets the eye. The reductionist, materialist worldview is so incomplete. And when we do talk to the hard questions of consciousness, meaning and purpose and those things, they've got nothing. Today I had a beautiful discussion about evolutionary psychology and just what a magnificent science it is, because it really teaches us the mechanism of mind. So kudos to the people who put those teachings together. And maybe if you want to, we can go into it, but just remember, it doesn't explain the hard questions. So let's go back to the presentation here. You'll see my next picture is, yes, a mental prison, but a necessary forge. So being who I am, at that stage, I studied Derek Prince, Smith Wigglesworth, Max Lucado, David Yonggi Cho, name them. I absorbed all of it. Smith Wigglesworth will always stay with you. Today, I just have a completely different view on Smith. South African context, there was, all the evangelical Christian churches and pastors. Angus Buchan had a big thing. And yes, I'm not going to criticize the work that he does, but once again, people following him in the dogma. Special shout out to somebody who laid the foundation for me to eventually break free of this prison. Cobus van Rensburg, rest in peace, Cobus. You taught me that it is for freedom that Christ has set us free, never to be yoked in the life again in slavery, and that we are free. The law, remember our picture of Moses, is not applicable. Today I will go further. It has never been applicable. It's a construct of the human mind and society to control ourselves. And yes, I studied prophecy extensively. So I can tell you, on a side note, which prophets are the real ones and which ones are not. I'm not going to go into deep on that. So yes, as a South African, we can have a nice chat about Sino van Rensburg. Quite interesting how people adapt these things currently to suit their agendas. But yeah, some of my friends actually went to Nigeria, to the Synagogue of All Nations, to get blessed by TB Joshua. Well, that turned out. But once again, I will tell you, when TB Joshua started, he was sincere. What it became is, once again, I'm just so sad. And that is unfortunately the very nature of religion. Not much I want to say further about that. So, in this context, That's where I lived and how I thought. So then when I was 38, let's look at our next slide here. Something foundational and exceptional happened. Now, for all the criticism against the author, let's read this. I have witnessed the same state of mind created in a group of men and women engaged in business of salesmanship without calling it the Spirit of the Lord. And then he goes on to explain the singing and the dancing and the energetic awakening. And it was like a lightning bolt that struck me. It's really all a lie. The way things are done is not the truth. Especially, and I'm putting that out there, criticize me all you like. There's aspects of evangelical Christianity which is rotten to the core. Don't criticize the Catholics. Look at yourselves first. I've got nothing good to say about the Catholics either. But studying later on all the different versions of Christianity very carefully, I must admit that the Eastern Orthodox has really impressed me, although I also view them as very rigid and locked into a certain worldview. I think Jonathan Pageau recently has really shown us the depth, which is actually, it's amazing, because religion does bring us structure, communion, and connection. It brings us rituals to anchor us in reality. It was never supposed to be more than that. And unfortunately, out of that then comes the modern spiritual movement, and trying to get the truth there is really, you really need AI to sift through all the stuff that goes up there. But I'm not going to go too much into that. But that I broke free from that by understanding that there's other experiences that simply not explained, or you don't have to have a Christian experience to experience it. Sufi Islam get the same by dancing. And yes, that was a seminal moment, and then became a real step up and sort of a deepening of, okay, what now? Where do I go to? What do I learn? And you'll see my picture here of breaking paradigms. So yes, Bob Proctor, thank you for explaining paradigms to me. Psycho-Cybernetics and Maxwell Maltz, brilliant book. Obviously I read Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, but a big chunk of the next 6 years of my life was studying with John DeMartini. When I had a chance, I attended his seminars. I went to all the levels in his stuff, and it really gave me a different perspective. And I think John's real contribution is that he brings together different worlds. Maybe stuck in a bit of dogma. The reason I still listen to him, but I do not attend his stuff, is that there's just too many disciples now. And a lot of it has become dogma. Dogma is the enemy of man. But this gave me a certain grounding that gave me more insights and breakthroughs. I even studied Ross Jeffries, the pickup artist, because he got something right. And it's not what you think. What I got from listening to Ross Jeffries is understanding how important your view of yourself is, and how important it is that you give yourself the freedom to fail. Because we do not teach children all young people the right to fail. I'm not saying giving you a license and saying go and do stupid stuff. We all make mistakes. It's not the end of the world. It's what you do with the mistake. That was a brilliant sort of evolution that took place there for me. And of course, out of that came interest in understanding people. I became an ICF accredited coach, became a Gallup Strength Finder coach, studied culture, Hofstede, actually with von Strompenaars, Richard Lewis, Aaron Myers, David Livermore. What great people. What great inspirational people. And what I really got from it, except for really having to understand that each person is different, but don't forget the context, each do come from a culture, is relativity. It's me to you. When I talk to you, the rest doesn't matter. I need to understand you in order for me to explain myself to you. And it's none of this stuff that you're seeing around you at the moment. It's quite interesting that a lot of cultural trainers try to go into the diversity, equity, and inclusivity space. I myself did that. And boy, were we in for a surprise. Because they weren't interested in true diversity, acknowledging cultures and respecting cultures. And that is the science of intercultural competence have been there for about 40 years, and cultural intelligence specifically has been there for 25 years. We've been preaching the message of listening to diverse opinions and acknowledging diversity and embracing it for quite some time. What we never preached was what it became. And I'm not going to talk about that now. What I really want to get you is the way to engage with people, talk to people, and of course, especially ICF accredited is how to listen, how to really get into talking with someone. One of the most amazing experiences when you can truly lose yourself and really just get into the other person's mind and will without being judgmental. This was followed by a lot of studies in Stoicism, Vanessa Van Edwards, Amy Cuddy, of course, the Stoicism, Ryan Holiday, extending from von Strompenaar's dilemma reconciliation. I really still believe it's his greatest contribution. Learn about influence, power, and embodiment. Amy Cuddy. Read a book. Watch a TED Talk. But yeah, taught you power, influence, and persuasion. How important is studying Robert Cialdini, Kevin Hogan, Jeffrey Pfeffer of Stanford, Rules of Power, Robert Greene. This is where Robert Greene's Laws of Power and the 50th Law and his 33 Strategies of War comes in. If you see it part of a way of approaching this world, and not to manipulate, but to understand this is how people actually act. So you really have to read all his work. A lot of people are a bit iffy on his stuff. Most people love Mastery. I think it's his greatest book. But Laws of Human Nature is a thick one. And so they get caught up with the 48 Laws of Power. From that, I went on into more mystical ways of looking at the world. Studied Neville Goddard, Thomas Troward, Robert Russell, Florence Scovel Shinn, all the stuff that the law of attraction people mention. I don't think one of these people would have called it that. Neville Goddard is seminal in understanding how your mind works and how you literally project yourself into this world. Thomas Troward really goes back to you are creating an energy structure around you. And whether you like it or not, you're going to live in it. We are creating our own reality. As I was saying in my previous video, you may not be able to control the waves, but you sure as hell can choose what you want to do with the waves. Robert Russell, great Christian writer, once again bringing these concepts in the Christian language, and that really opened it up for me. Florence Scovel Shin, I mean, amazing teachings in the sense that she had this flippancy about it. Oh, you can't do that to me. This is who I am. I expect good things to happen. I'm engaging with the world, and if it doesn't happen, I will understand that that's the best thing to happen. What a way to go through the world. And the most beautiful part of her story is that the day that she decided she's done, she sat on the couch and she died. What a way to go. Let's look a bit further. Of course, once you've gotten all these foundations in place, you start asking yourself, well, what am I missing? How does this all fit together? So yes, start seeking the profits of existence. Nathaniel Branden was seminal for me to really understand self-esteem, and I got to see that self-esteem is not a fixed concept, it's a process, a cyclical spiral process. And that's probably where I really got irritated with Jordan B. Peterson. But that irritation took me to Robert Keegan, Harvard psychologist, developmental model of the mind. And that linked back to Robert Greene's book of Mastery. So amazing to see the correlation and then understand at the end you want to get to the self-transformative mind, the place where you create your own reality. But you can choose to stay where you are and just being the slave of other people's opinions and wills. And here's the thing, a beautiful quote from a Senegalese professor who said, when I was a young man, I thought I could go and change the world. And 50 years later, if there's one thing I can tell any student, you cannot change the world. Learn to be who you are in it. And that's the seminal foundation here. Also, great writers, Brene Brown, really Atlas of the Heart, the earlier works, brilliant. It really brings you that self-compassion, self-acceptance part into the thing. And someone like David Brooks, bit of a weird character, but amazing insights. And if you listen to these videos and stuff, you see a person with a real heart for other people. And that then gives you that emotional, psychological depth of understanding the world. But I wasn't done yet. The last 2 years, I was confronted with basically the explosion of AI. But what AI gave me is I could now really open up the big philosophers that stood like mountains before me. Nietzsche, Jung, Heidegger. I see people say Camus. They talk about Albert Camus. You know, that would be Albert Camus if you want to do the French thing. Otherwise, it's just Albert Camus. But that takes you into a frame of mind of liberation. You want to become a Ubermensch, not a finale Mensch, as Nietzsche would say. Because you're seeing a lot of those final people around you. Nietzsche has become a very untimely prophet. Jung and the individuation process. Heidegger and being. And of course, people like Camus is about embracing absurdity. I also spend a lot of time studying stupidity and really understanding the whole play in society, because after what happened in 2020, you know, it wasn't just meaning and comfort that was an issue. We were really hitting a crisis of trust. And you're seeing it again in the news at the moment. One big international institution that was reputable and viewed as the standard being exposed for fabricating news. Institutional trust is dead. And it will, I'm of the opinion it's not going to return. Not in the age where everybody has access to all the information. So if you go on then from there, where do you go? You go into great thinkers, Bernardo Kastrup, Federico Fagan, Tom Campbell, who am I missing here? Hoffman, Roger Penrose. Right now, see, I'm now moving in that space where I know there's different ways, different lenses, and you need to go and explore each one. That really brought it together. So my core message that I've learned and how we get from the one painting to the other one is, let me just go back and show you this. Free your mind of the chains that the world has placed on it. Free your heart from the pain and the sorrow that you have placed on it. Free your spirit from the expectation that you can understand anything and that life is to be controlled and manipulated. Free your spirit from it. Life is about living, being. That's what hiding us is about, being. And then you want to discover that after you broke all those chains, got out of the prison, you are walking alone in a desert. You need to plant a garden and tend to it. That garden is you. I'm going to say it again. You need to plant your garden. And that garden is you. And you need to share that with the world so that you can become the flame of who you are. True being. And we'll do a lot of that in further videos, why that is so important. But first you need to really, really free yourself. And that is the synthesis of the self. So here is my funnel. I told you it was a story of a funnel, a spiral. Go and look at my first principles video. The geometry of becoming. Starting up wide. Cyclical, going down, smaller, smaller, faster, faster, faster. But you come at a point that you are at a place where you have to really live a different life. So religion gave me archetype. Mind gave me agency. Culture gave me relativity. Influence gave me embodiment. Mysticism gave me imagination. Psychology gave me integration. Existence gave me death. Each cycle demands the next. Your path will not be exactly the same. As you discover, if you are someone that likes my work, it means that you're on a path of discovery. Your path will not be the same as mine. But each step requires the next. I hope for your sake that embracing the knowledge and really understanding it, don't be like me, don't be so bull-headed and stubborn. That's why I said that I wish I could tell that young man not to do this. But here I am, and I know what I know. And I would like to share it with you. And for those of you who really want a different way of looking at the world, by not discarding but also not rejecting, that's why I created the Hidden Bridge. You see here as that's what I'm busy with. Apotheosis is my main thing. Because apotheosis for me just means that you can be more than you think you could be. And yes, there's the action figure as rendered by AI. Henry B. Know thyself. So yes, here we are at the bridge. Your story will not be the same as mine, but it will be a spiral. It will be a realization. And somebody asked me, but how do you live in that final phase where you become the flame? And I can just tell you that once again, it will probably be a spiral process. You're not supposed to just become everything in one day. It is a question of growing and learning, and not be afraid to grow and learn. You know, the old saying, everybody's saying, oh, only constant is change. So why are you willing to die to keep things the same? Why do you reject change if it's the only constant? Are we talking about stupidity or hubris? My invitation to you, come with me on this journey. Discover the beauty of everything that is. Remember, as I said, anamnesis, remember who you are. And that you're here to have a really magnificent experience.